You are sitting in a car that isn't yours yet, parked in a lot behind a restaurant in Queens at 11:43 at night, and your hands still smell like the dish station. $11 an hour, $63 today, before taxes. You pull out a folded piece of paper, margins, costs, numbers you calculated in your head between plates, and you look at it like it's evidence of something you can't name yet. Nobody taught you to want more than this. That's the invisible ceiling, and you're only just beginning to feel it. That folded piece of paper in your pocket, you've been carrying numbers in your head since before you knew what numbers were for. Your parents came to this country with $340 and 2 suitcases. You know this because your father said it exactly once, at the kitchen table, when you were 9 years old and asked why you couldn't go on the school trip to Washington, D.C. He didn't tell it like a story. He said it like a number on a bill. Flat. Final. The trip cost $47. You didn't go. That was the first time you understood that money wasn't something your family managed. It was something your family survived. Nobody explained this. Nobody sat you down with a chart or a plan. The education happened in smaller moments than that. It happened in the way your mother's shoulders dropped every time the phone rang from a number she didn't recognize. Because back then, unknown numbers meant one thing. It happened in the specific silence that followed the sound of the mail slot. In the way she moved through the kitchen faster when the heat bill was due, as if she kept moving, the number at the bottom of the envelope couldn't catch her. You learned to read all of it before you could read cursive. The emergency fund in your house was a Maxwell House coffee tin with a red lid, pushed to the back of the cabinet above the refrigerator. You had to stand on a chair to reach it. Inside, rolled bills, rubber banded, a few coins loose at the bottom. No interest, no growth, no plan, just cash sitting in the dark, waiting for something to go wrong. And something always went wrong. The car, the tooth, the landlord's new policy. The tin would come down, the bills would come out, and for a few days, the air in the apartment felt thinner, like everyone was breathing a little more carefully until it was replenished. This is what you understood money to be. Not a tool, not an asset, a buffer between you and the next bad thing. Currently, the average American household keeps less than $1,000 in liquid savings. Your family wasn't behind. Your family was exactly the norm. That's the part nobody tells you when you're 9 years old, standing on a chair to reach the coffee tin. That the ceiling above you isn't your family's failure. It's a structure built long before you arrived, shared by more people than you'll ever meet. But you didn't know that yet. You just knew the tin. You knew the way your father's jaw tightened when the car made a noise it didn't make yesterday. The specific arithmetic of that tightening, repair estimate versus account balance, one number always larger than the other. You knew the unspoken protocol of not asking for things during certain weeks of the month, the way you read the calendar, not by dates but by the rhythm of your parents' voices. Lose at the beginning of the month. Tight by the 22nd. You were 10 years old and you already knew how to read a household's financial pressure without a single number being spoken out loud. That's not poverty. That's inheritance. A way of holding money and being held by it, passed down not through conversation, but through the body, through rooms, through the specific sound of a refrigerator door opening and closing, too slowly by someone counting what's left. You didn't choose this ceiling. You were born inside it. And for a long time, it just felt like the sky. But something is already shifting. That folded piece of paper, those numbers you calculated in the dark behind a restaurant that isn't yours. That's where the wake-up call begins. The moment you stop reading the room and start reading the margins. The margins you're calculating aren't theoretical. They're survival arithmetic. The same kind your mother did every 22nd of the month, except hers ended in less than yours. You're starting to think. Don't have to. You are 19 years old. You are standing at a prep station in the back of a diner in Queens called Rosa's, scraping plates into a gray bin, and the smell of dish soap and old grease is so permanent on your skin now that you don't notice it anymore. $7.25 was the federal minimum when your parents arrived. It's $11 an hour now. You did the math on your first day. $63 before taxes on a 6-hour shift. $44 after. You know this number the way you know your own name. But somewhere between the breakfast rush and the lunch crowd, something else starts happening. The owner, a man named Dale, moves through the dining room with a particular kind of ease that has nothing to do with personality. It's the ease of someone who knows exactly what every table is worth. You watch him from the kitchen window, not consciously, not with any plan, just watching the way he watches the room. And your mind, without being asked, starts doing what it's always done, counting. Food costs per plate, roughly 30% of the menu price. Labor running, maybe 28, 29% on a busy morning. The margins aren't wide, but they exist, and they belong to Dale, not to you. You fold that observation into the same pocket as everything else you can't do anything with yet. Then you go home, and you can't sleep, not because you're angry, because something has been disturbed that can't be undisturbed. You start reading anything, everything on a cracked phone screen at 1 a.m. while your roommate sleeps 6 feet away. Business models, markup. How much does a website cost to build versus how much someone will pay for one? You read about a guy who started a pressure washing business with a $200 used machine and cleared $4,000 in his first month. Currently, the average side hustle earns an American worker an extra $810 a month. You do not want average. You want the thing Dale has, the room that works while you're not watching it. So, you save, quietly, $11 an hour, $44 a day, shift after shift after shift, and you put $1,500 in a checking account, and you tell no one. Then, you spend it. A basic website, a business license, a logo from someone on Fiverr, a Google ad that ran for 10 days and produced exactly 0 clients, $1,500, gone in less than 2 weeks. You check the account on a Thursday morning, the number reads $23.17, and your chest does something specific. Not panic, something quieter and worse than panic. The particular feeling of having tried and having the world say nothing back. You sit with it. You don't tell anyone. You go back to Rosa's on Friday and scrape plates and watch Dale move through the dining room, and you do not quit. That's the thing nobody marks with a ceremony. Not the losing, the staying anyway. The way you absorb a loss that size, at that age, on that income, and don't let it become the last sentence of your story. You just go back. You keep reading. You keep counting. And slowly, without announcing itself, the lonely grind begins. Not as a moment, but as a length of time you're about to live inside for longer than you can currently imagine. You don't notice it becoming years. That's the thing about the long middle. It doesn't announce itself, it just keeps being Tuesday. The mattress you're sleeping on cost $180 from a guy in Astoria who posted it on Facebook Marketplace with one photo and the description, barely used. You carry it up 3 flights with a guy from down the hall you barely know because you don't have anyone else to call. You set it on the floor because the bed frame is next month's problem. You lie down on it at 11 p.m. and you're back up at 6 a.m. And in between, you read everything you didn't finish reading the night before. This is what the grind actually looks like. Not a montage, not a highlight. A $180 mattress on a floor in Astoria and a cracked phone screen and the specific discipline of doing the same invisible thing tomorrow that you did today, with no one watching and no one asking how it's going. The invitations stop gradually. You don't notice the exact moment. Just one Sunday, you realize the group chat hasn't said your name in 6 weeks. Nobody cut you off. Nobody had a conversation about it. You just became someone who isn't available. And eventually, people stop reaching for someone who isn't there. You tell yourself it's fine. Some nights it is. The social math is crueler than the financial math. When you lose $1,500, you know what you lost. When you lose a group of people who knew you before all of this, the number doesn't exist. You just feel it on Friday nights when your phone is quiet and you're reading about LLC tax structures instead. By 22, you're building websites for small businesses out of that Astoria apartment. A bodega owner in Jackson Heights, a woman who runs a cleaning service out of the Bronx, a barbershop in Flatbush that needed to show up on Google. You charge $800 a site, then $1,200, then $2,000 when you realize the work is the same and the only thing that changed was what you believed it was worth. By 24, you are running a small digital agency, 3 freelancers you coordinate over Slack, a monthly retainer model, 12 clients, $400 to $900 each, depending on what they need. Total, $6,800 a month. You do the math on a Tuesday afternoon, and then you do it again because the first time didn't feel real. Currently, the median household income in the US sits just under $80,000 a year. You are making that alone, from a desk wedged between the kitchen and the window, in an apartment where the radiator still knocks every night at 2 a.m. Nobody congratulates you. There is no moment. You transfer the money, you pay your freelancers, you send the invoices, and you open the next problem. That's all it is. The work, and then more work, and the slow compound of showing up when it would have been easier not to. By 28, the agency has become something else entirely. Software, a product, recurring revenue that doesn't require you to bill by the hour anymore. $3.1 million annually. A number that still doesn't feel like it belongs to you when you see it on a screen. That's the year a venture capital firm calls. They want to meet, they have a number in mind, $4 million for 16% of what you built. You sit across the table from 2 men in a conference room in Midtown. You listen, and you think about Dale's dining room and your mother's shoulders, and you say, no. That no is where the quiet crossing begins. The moment the grind stops being about survival and starts being about something you don't yet have a word for. The no you said in that Midtown conference room doesn't feel like power at first. It feels like the specific vertigo of having turned down more money than your parents will earn in the next 20 years combined, based on a feeling you can't fully articulate to anyone, including yourself. You go home, you work, you don't tell anyone about the meeting. 6 months later, the software crosses $10.1 million in annual recurring revenue without you billing a single hour. You are 31 years old. You are sitting at the same desk, wedged between the kitchen and the window, and the radiator is still knocking, and your phone shows a number that doesn't fit inside the life currently surrounding it. You check it again. Same number. Same. You put the phone face down on the desk, and you sit there for a moment doing nothing, which is something you haven't done in years. This is not what arriving feels like in the movies. There is no soundtrack, no slow exhale, just a Wednesday morning, a knocking radiator, and a number on a screen that has quietly outgrown everything around it. The old problems dissolve so fast you barely notice them going. The radiator, the mattress, the question of whether you can cover next month. Gone. And in their place, immediately, without pause, a completely different set of problems arrives in a language nobody prepared you for. An accountant calls and uses the phrase pass-through entity taxation, and you write it down and look it up and understand it technically, but have no idea what it means for you specifically. A lawyer mentions a revocable trust and explains why you need one, and you nod and feel, for the first time since you were 9 years old, standing on a chair to reach the coffee tin, like you are back in a room where everyone else knows something you don't. Currently, only about 34% of Americans have any estate planning documents at all. The other 66%, and until 8 weeks ago you, are operating without a map in a territory that has real consequences for getting it wrong. You get one thing wrong almost immediately. You take a distribution from the business without setting aside the self-employment tax. Quarterly estimated payments. Nobody mentioned quarterly estimated payments. The bill arrives. It is $47,000. You pay it, and you do not sleep well for 4 nights. Not because you can't cover it, but because you didn't see it coming. And not seeing it coming means there are other things you're not seeing, and you don't yet know what they are. That's the specific texture of new money that nobody talks about. It's not a celebration. It's the vertigo of competence without context. Knowing how to build something, having built it, and then discovering that inhabiting what you built requires an entirely different education that nobody offered you, and you're going to have to acquire in real time, at real cost. You pick up the phone to call your mother. You want to tell her the number. You hold the phone, You think about how you would begin that sentence, and you put the phone down. Not because you don't want to share it, because the sentence doesn't exist yet. The language between you was built for a different set of problems, and this one doesn't translate. You are standing in a room with all the furniture removed. Everything that held the old shape of your life is gone, and the new shape hasn't arrived yet. That gap between what you've built and who you can bring into it is where the emotional gap lives, quiet and permanent, just beneath everything else you're managing. The gap doesn't announce itself. It just shows up in ordinary moments wearing ordinary clothes. Your cousin Darnell calls on a Tuesday night, not to catch up, not exactly. There's a thing with his landlord. He needs $2,200 by Friday, or he's out. He doesn't ask directly. He just describes the situation in enough detail that the ask is obvious, and then he goes quiet. And the quiet is the question. You say yes. You send it that night, and something in the room changes. Not between you and Darnell specifically, but in some larger architecture of what you are to each other now. You are no longer the same species of person navigating the same species of problem. You are something else, and both of you feel it, and neither of you says it. That's the first one. There will be others. Your best friend from high school, Jerome, stops calling the way he used to. Not dramatically. The calls just get shorter, the texts less frequent. You used to talk every Sunday, about nothing, about everything, the way you do with someone who has known you since before you knew yourself. Then, one Sunday, you realize it's been 6 weeks. You text him. He responds, eventually, warmly enough. But something is different in the warmth. It has the quality of effort now, of maintenance, like tending to something neither of you is sure still grows. You don't know how to fix it because you don't know what broke. Nothing broke. That's the harder truth. You just moved, slowly and without announcing it, into a different room. And the distance isn't hostility, it's just distance. The kind that accumulates when two people's daily realities stop overlapping. And the overlap was most of what you talked about. You go home for Thanksgiving. Your aunt makes the same food in the same kitchen and the same football game plays in the background, and on the surface, it is completely unchanged. But you sit at that table knowing something nobody else at it knows, and the knowing is its own kind of alone. Your uncle makes a joke about rich people. Everyone laughs. You laugh too, a half beat late, because you needed that half beat to decide which version of yourself is sitting in this chair. The money itself doesn't come up. It never comes up directly. But it is present in every room you enter now, rearranging the furniture, adjusting the light, changing the specific gravity between you and people you have loved your entire life. Currently, research on sudden wealth consistently identifies relationship disruption as the primary source of psychological distress. More than the financial complexity, more than the legal learning curve. The money is manageable. The people are not. You are not losing anyone. That's what makes it so difficult to name. Jerome is still there. Darnell is still there. Your aunt is still cooking in the same kitchen. Nobody left. They are just becoming slowly and without intention people you used to be the same as. And you are grieving something that has no funeral, no moment, no clean before and after. You keep going home. You keep showing up. You keep sending what people need when they need it, and you keep laughing a half beat late at the jokes about people like you, and you keep carrying the distance like a coat you can't take off inside the house. You build anyway, because the only alternative is to stop, and stopping was never in you. And what you're building toward, the thing the grind and the crossing and all of this grief has actually been for, is waiting for you in a driveway, on a Wednesday afternoon, in a 9-year-old Lexus. That's where architecting the legacy begins. You are 47 years old, and you are sitting in a 9-year-old Lexus in your own driveway, and you have not gone inside yet. A woman named Carol from Forbes called 40 minutes ago to verify a number. Standard procedure, she said. Routine confirmation. You said fine and answered her questions. She thanked you and hung up, and since then, you have not moved. The engine is off. The garage door is still open. The number she confirmed was $1.84 billion. You sit with that for 6 minutes, not celebrating, not crying, just sitting, The way you used to sit on the floor of that Astoria apartment after the radiator finally stopped knocking, in the specific quiet of a thing being over. Except nothing is over. That's what the 6 minutes teach you. You think about the coffee tin with the red lid. You think about your father saying $340 like it was a verdict. You think about Dale moving through the dining room at Rosa's with that particular ease, and the folded piece of paper in your pocket, and the $23.17 left in a checking account on a Thursday morning after 10 days of trying. You think about the Midtown conference room and the two men and the 16% and the no that felt like jumping off something without being able to see the bottom. You think about Jerome, about the Sunday calls that got shorter, about Darnell and the $2,200 and the room that changed afterward, about your aunt's kitchen and the half-beat laugh and the coat you still can't take off inside the house. The $1.84 billion doesn't erase any of it. It doesn't explain any of it. It just sits on top of all of it, the way a very large number sits on top of a life, quietly, without resolving anything underneath. You go inside. Your daughter Maya is at the kitchen table. She is 13 years old, and she is working on negative exponents, and she is frustrated in a specific way that someone is certain they are missing something obvious. She looks up when you walk in. You put your keys on the counter. You sit down across from her. She shows you the problem. You look at it, and for a moment, just a moment, you are aware of the full distance between this kitchen table and the one you grew up at. The one where your father said $340 like a verdict, where the mail slot had a sound that changed the temperature of the room, where you learned to read your mother's shoulders before she said a word. Maya doesn't know any of that. She just knows she can't figure out the exponent. You're here, and you can help. So you help. That's it. That's the whole thing. Not the $1.84 billion. Not the Forbes call. Not the Midtown conference room or the Astoria basement or the $180 mattress or the 10,000 mornings of doing the invisible thing with no one watching. All of it, every single compounding decision made in the dark, was in service of this specific ordinary moment. A 13-year-old who doesn't have to worry about the mail slot, who has never once read the temperature of a room by her mother's shoulders, who just needs help with math on a random Tuesday night and doesn't know how extraordinary that is. Currently, first-generation wealth builders represent one of the fastest-growing financial demographics in the country. But the number that matters most to you right now is not in any report. It's the one Maya is writing in pencil at the top of her notebook, the answer she's about to get right. You don't need her to know what tonight costs. You just need her to get the answer. And somewhere in the carrying of that, in the specific weight of knowing what you know and choosing to say nothing so she can just be 13, is the question that doesn't leave you, even here, even now, the one that follows you out of the kitchen when she finally gets it and laughs and moves on to the next problem. What do you teach someone to want when they've never had to want for anything? Maya gets the answer and moves on to the next problem. Just like that. No pause, no awareness of what just happened at that table. You sit there a moment longer than you need to. The coffee tin didn't grow. The $340 didn't compound. The invisible ceiling held everyone above you for generations, not because they lacked intelligence or discipline, but because nobody in the room knew the ceiling was there. You knew because you felt it from the inside, slowly, over years of pressing against it without knowing that's what you were doing. Next time you're in a room and money feels like a wall, notice whether it's actually a wall or just the edge of what you were taught to expect. The knowing doesn't make Tuesday easier. You still carry the coat. You still laugh a half beat late. But Maya doesn't know what a half beat sounds like. That's the question you're still answering.